Okay, good morning. We'll get started with this morning's agenda. First off, can I please ask everyone to set their cell phones on mute? Thank you. First item on the agenda, it's unfinished business. It's application FN 2008-003. Anyone here in support or opposition, come forward, please. That's 626 Blair Creek Drive. Come on down to the front. No. Good morning. Your name?
Good morning.
Your name?
My name is Ramandeep Brar.
Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yeah.
They're recommending approval with conditions. Did you have any questions or comments? Do you understand all the conditions?
No, but just we want like the applications. Yeah, we want like this permission.
All right. Just one question for traffic, I guess, that they had made a comment in regards to ensuring that they preserve the corner visibility triangle. Are we satisfied that this condition will cover that properly moving forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we're satisfied that condition has been satisfied.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Scott?
Excuse me. Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, can staff advise how close the property line is to the sidewalk? It's not possible to see it on the survey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's about 5.25 meters from the corner of the house to the sidewalk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, again to staff. Now, I'm more worried about where the fence would be located relative to the sidewalk. I'm guessing it's around a foot or two, but I'm not sure. My concern, Mr. Chair, while they're looking it up, is just the ability of implementing the condition recommended by staff for the landscaping. If there's only a couple of feet, it may be very tight.
It's proposed at 0.6 meters. The fence location is at 0.6 meters, so 2 feet. The recommendation for landscaping is it is a standard condition that staff asks for here, where there's opportunity to provide some sort of landscaping on the public side of the fence in order to help with streetscape amenity.
Does that help, Scott? All right. Anything further? Any questions, comments, motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is fairly straightforward. I will move that this be approved with the one condition that is in the staff report, and that's the landscaping.
Second. Mike? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Please be advised that this committee simply makes recommendation to council. Council has final approval for signs and fences, which in your case, you're a fence. And council will be meeting December 17th for final approval of this application, so it would be prudent for you to attend council meeting as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Next application is A 2018-116. Anyone here in support or opposition, please come forward. That's 359 Alice Ave. Good morning. Your
My name is Rob Sekunovic from JR Design Consultants.
Okay. Is there still recommended a deferral on this application? No? Sorry. All right. Yep, I got it. All right. Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report, Rob?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any questions or comments in regards to the recommendation, the
No.
conditions? You understand the conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments, questions?
Through you, the
Motion?
chair. Sorry. I just need you to accept the amendment because the application needed to be compliant with the RIENS study. So the applicant needed a slightly larger front yard due to the RIENS zoning bylaw change. So in comparison to what it was advertised versus what is being proposed now.
Okay, so we need to amend the application. Are you willing to do that? Okay, so the application is thereby amended. I'm sorry, I didn't notice you over there. You're in opposition to this application?
I am. I own a property beside this, the one on Alice Street.
Okay, your name?
John Paul Duquette.
John, okay. Voice your concerns. Give us your concerns.
My
I guess.
concerns are the setback that you have on the property. That's going to be very close to my yard. It's going to really close it in. So I think the setback's supposed to be 7.5 meters, and it's 4.42 meters. So, and I think this, if I read this right, it's a 2.5-story house that's going to be there. So that's going to really close in a property that I purchased that had a big yard, in a city yard that's over 200 feet deep. So now it's going to be boxed in. So I do have a concern with that. And then with that setback, the rear windows are going to be very close to our property. So you're basically, they're going to be overlooking our property. So that's one of the concerns.
All right. I'll let the applicant maybe address that concern. Do you have any comments?
So the current setback right now of the house is actually a lot closer to the property line. We're actually setting it back further. With the layout of the lot, we won't be able to get access from Victoria Street, so to make the house the other way so that it would comply with the setbacks it isn't possible. So the only way to do it is to orient the building the way we're proposing it. And as far as the height is concerned, it falls within the minimum height restrictions. So.
Can I make a comment? So it says, going through this report here, it says the planning comments here, it says it's a low-rise residential property that was in the official plan in 1994. And a 2.5-story building, is that a low-rise property? And then with the setback, the house that's currently there is a small, it's probably under 1,000 square foot house, and that house, that setback is on the side of our property where there's no windows, it's just the side of our building, so it doesn't really affect anything. Now you're going to have a bigger 2 properties on that lot, and the whole backyard is going to be housed from what we're going to see. So I do have a concern with that.
Okay, we'll let staff address the report that they wrote and the recommendation that they wrote up.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to speak to the comment about low-rise designation. The low-rise residential designation permits developments up to 3 stories in anywhere in the city. So a 2.5-story or 2-story structure is compliant with that requirement.
Okay, yes. Scott.
Through you, Mr. Chair, again to staff, and it was more related to the concern that we've heard. I was going to ask the question, was any consideration given to shifting the semi closer to Alice Street? You've got a setback there of, looks like 4.9, and yet the side yard is 4.4. You could shift it 1.5 meters or so closer, and you'd end up with a slightly less variance required.
Yep.
So through you, Mr. Chair, this is an example of a property that has been affected by the RIENS study. What the RIENS study recommended was that where there's a situation where you're going to be creating a new development in an area that has an established development pattern, that the front yard setback be within 1 meter of adjacent front yard setbacks. And the property adjacent on Alice Street is set back significantly further. I don't have the exact measurement, but I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or more meters. And staff felt that pushing that building that far back would eliminate any kind of rear yard for this property at all. And that is why the variance had to be adjusted, because typically in this zone, the setback for a front yard would be 4.5 meters. With the Rien study, this would have had to have been pushed back within 1 meter of 10 point something meters. So it could have been 9 meters or it could have been 11 meters in order to comply with the Rien study. Staff felt that would probably not be reflective of an appropriate development for this site. In this case, the ability to have somewhat of a rear yard was viewed as more appropriate than pushing the house completely back in order to comply with all of the regulations in the Rien's bylaw. And that's why the variance had to be significantly larger. Given that this is a corner property, typically houses, when they're facing the smaller street, in this case Alice Street, would not be using their rear yard as a rear yard. It acts more as a side yard. And because their exterior side yard, or the side yard that is facing Victoria Street, would likely be more of a rear yard function because of the orientation of the home on the property. Given that Victoria Street is a busier street and there will be a future widening along this area at some point in time, staff felt that some rear yard was better than having no rear yard and pushing the building completely back to the property line. The 4.5 meter setback is larger than a side yard requirement, so it's definitely something that would be consistent with other side yard, exterior side yard situations throughout the city.
Yes, Jennifer?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, that was a question I was going to get at that Ms. von Westerholt just already addressed. What is the quantum for an interior side yard? If it were, since it is essentially to function that way, do you know off the top of your head what the interior side yard setback requirement would normally be in this neighborhood?
1.2 meters.
1.2 meters, thank you.
Yes, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, a question for staff, just as a follow-up. The amenity area for the semi-facing Victoria will really be the Victoria front yard there. Where will fences be allowed? I suspect there'll be a fence put up, but I'm worried about sight lines.
Through you, Mr. Chair, any fence that would be applied to this property would have to conform to the fence bylaw. In terms of a fence being located, it could not be located within the driveway visibility area, which is adjacent to any proposed driveway, and it would have to be outside of the corner visibility triangle, which is formed by the intersection of Alice Street and Victoria Street. It is typical to have a fence along a property line. It's usually offset from the property somewhat so that it's not directly on the property line. I hope that answers the committee member's question.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through you to staff. This building, I'm gathering, is somewhere around 50 years old, and my question would be, when this was first developed, would parkland dedication have been taken at that time, 50 years ago?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not certain that it has, but our park staff, they have not requested any parkland dedication, have they?
Anyone else? Questions, comments, motion?
If I
Sorry.
could for just 1 second.
Yes, sure.
Just in regards to the second floor, we did take into consideration that the neighbor's privacy might come into conflict, so there isn't any windows looking directly into the backyard from the second floor other than the bathroom window, which will be fogged. So there won't be any windows on the second floor looking into that backyard. It'll just be on the main floor, which will be obstructed by the fence that will be installed.
Can I have some details on the fence?
We'll provide a 5-foot privacy fence.
Is that anything we can discuss to have a higher fence and maybe some landscaping with some mature trees or something?
That would be up to staff, I would think.
Like, I'm willing to compromise here. I just want to, I did buy a property and I don't want the resale value of my property to go down because of, a big dwelling going up beside it that's closing in our yard. So if it's something that we can discuss.
Absolutely.
So you would be satisfied with, say, a 6-foot fence and some...
Well, I'd want to see what they can propose and then...
Some landscaping, so... Well, condition number 1 is the owner has to submit a site plan and building elevations drawings showing location proposed to satisfaction of the city's director of planning. I think I would suppose that those issues could be dealt with through that process. Am I correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, if the committee imposes those conditions, we could look at that. Typically, this wouldn't be subject to site plan control in terms of requiring a fence, but we've heard from the applicant that they want to put a fence in.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we heard also from the applicant that there is no intention. This might have been a situation where elevations would have been helpful, but we heard from the applicant that there's no intention to put windows on that facade, the rear facade, on the second story. Perhaps that can be a condition as well. Either no windows or opaque windows on the second story rear facade. Certainly happy to move that this applicant...
Sorry, before we get there, there is a regional condition. I'm not sure if that, I just want to bring it to your attention on what you'd like to. Is it your intention to add that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, motion to approve application A 2018-116, subject to the 2 conditions set out in the staff report. The addition of a condition requiring that no windows or only opaque windows be located on the second-story rear facade of the proposed dwellings, and the addition of the region's condition.
So is that going to address, sorry, I didn't know if I heard all of that, that would address my concerns of the fence and maybe some mature trees or something? Before, because if you approve this and we don't have anything in writing or anything like that, how do I know that it's going to happen?
The fence will be installed. The mature trees, well, I'm going to have to talk to the owner about that. I'm not sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the trees will be addressed through the tree preservation plan. That's a condition of approval.
Yeah.
Fencing, I'm not inclined to introduce a condition requiring a fence.
And,
All right.
and that's to address our concern of what we'll be looking at out of our backyard.
Scott?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next application is A 2018-123. It should be 108 Aaron Street West. Supporter opposition, come forward, please. Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Oh, that's good. Glad to see that you were able to work something out with the city. Just one comment in reference to the recommendation. I believe the recommendation for the office use should be approved and revised to 65%, opposed to the way it's written, should it not? Or am I reading that wrong? Staff are supporting office use of 65% on the site?
That's correct, but we did put a maximum cap on the square meters of each individual office space as well. So that would have to remain. Okay.
Right. But the recommendation says that we be refused. Is it not? Am I looking at the wrong one here?
Through you, Mr. Chair, condition number
Yeah,
A.
I am. My page is stuck, sorry.
It states have 65% office use rather than permitted 25.
Gotcha.
And then on the second page of all the recommendations, under G1 G2, that the individual artisan's establishment or office uses be limited to a maximum of 250 square meters.
Yeah.
That was based on the discussion we had with the applicant.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to commend staff and the applicant for working through the issue that there was on the amount of office space to be permitted, and I'm prepared to support the application.
Second? Second, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon me? Mike. Okay. They both did. Next application is A 2018-125. That's 810 Frederick Street. Anyone here support or opposition? Come forward, please.
Hello.
Morning.
Nathan Hallman, in support.
Fairly straightforward applications. Anyone have any questions or comments? Motion? Second? Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get started on this morning's regular agenda. First item on the agenda is SG 2018-14. That's 321 Fisher Holman Road. Anyone here in support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Paul Jukes from Signs by Jukes.
Okay, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
I have.
They're recommending approval with conditions. Do you have any questions? Do you understand the conditions?
I do understand.
Okay, you're in agreement with them?
I am.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? Bob?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in going through this application, I'd like to add, with the committee's approval, a sixth condition, that the auto changing copy portion is restricted to the 0.23 meters. I believe that's what they are asking for at this point, but I just would like to have that clarified a little bit further. So just one extra condition, that the changing copy portion be restricted to the 0.23 meters squared.
0.23 meters square. That's for both sides total or for one side?
That would be per side.
Per side.
All right. Anyone else? It's not.
Just, can we get clarification that the variance that's requested is 3.23 square meters? All I heard was 0.23. So you're asking that it be acknowledged at 3.23.
Bob?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 3.23 is the overall sign. I'm just referring to the changing copy portion, if I can find it. As per the the rendering with our package, it's just going to be a 61 inches by 22-inch LED message board. But once that's been approved, that can change over time. So I just wanted to keep that portion of the overall sign restricted to the 0.23 meters.
So you're happy with how it's represented in the drawing, is that right?
That's what he's referring to, yeah.
Right. So it would comply with the drawing that we submitted?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm fine with that.
yeah. Jillian?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification, I think this will help address Mr. McCall's question, and followed by the other committee member's question. The increase in the area was 0.2 square meters, so for a total of 3.23 from 3. So that, just so that the committee is aware of the actual sizes. And from what I understand, it's to be permitted on both sides of the sign.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Motion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thanks, staff, for clarifying that. I will move that this be approved as amended with the extra condition.
Second? Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Once again, we just make recommendation to council, and council will be meeting December 17th, so be prudent for you to be there. Okay, thank you. Next application is 2018-15. It's 371 Franklin Street North. Anyone here in support of opposition? Good morning. Your name?
Simon Darrick from Westmount Signs.
Okay, Simon, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any questions or
Nope.
comments? All right, questions, comments from committee? Yes, Bob?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Same as the previous application, I would like to have a condition there that the changing copy portion of this sign is restricted to, I believe, if my math is correct, 2.2 meters squared.
Okay. Just take a look at my drawings. Okay, 2.2. So the sign that's there right now, that is, there is a manual reader board that is the same size, so we would just be replacing that with the digital sign. Are you still requesting the size 2.2 square meters?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, yes, I understand that this is as per the drawing submitted by you folks, that it's going to be, the overall is 242 centimeters by 87 centimeters, which is 2.2 meters squared. And I'm assuming that's going to be on both sides. So I just want to put an overall dimension.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's just what you've got,
Okay.
but limited to what you've got.
Perfect. Yep. That's fine.
Okay, this recommendation is amended. Is that a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will move that this be approved as amended.
Sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that the numbers are right, and everyone's satisfied that the number that you're putting to this is right, so they don't have to come back. And I just want to know how it came up with that number.
Then why don't we do what we did with the previous one and just say as per the submitted drawing from Westmount Signs?
Sure. All right. So it's motion on the floor, amended once again. Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Great,
Once
thank you.
again, We make recommendation to council. Council will be meeting December 17th. So,
Great, thank you very much.
thank you. Next applications, A 2018-126. It's 468 Tressler Road, supporter opposition. Good morning.
Morning.
And your name?
Eric Reich from Engineering.
Okay. You had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes, I have.
There's no third-party agency comments. Staff are recommending approval without condition. Do we know what's planned for the rear yard? Is there a draft plan on this already?
Yes, the draft plan is in the process. I believe they're in detailed engineering design. Maybe Julianne could comment on that.
Working through it right now. Do we have any idea how this would
The
impact?
plan has been draft approved,
Okay.
and they're working through their detailed engineering design. This is also in the proximity to where the city's going to be constructing a pumping station, so,
Right. No, I was just curious how it might impact the neighboring property, that's all.
yeah.
We don't have that information in our package.
It shouldn't have any impact. It was always anticipated for this use, so.
All right. Anyone have any questions or comments? No, motion? Scott? Second? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-128-24 Crosswinds Drive. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning. Phil Howe from Fusion Homes.
Okay. Phil, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes.
They're recommending approval with no conditions. Do we know, or have you submitted to building department for a revised building permit?
Yes, we have.
That has happened. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yeah. No one? Motion?
Mr. Chair, this is very straightforward. I move that this be approved with no conditions.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. Next application is A 2018-129. It's 398 River Trail Ave. Support or opposition? Come forward, please.
Hello, Pat Haramis. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Good morning, Pat. Have you had an opportunity to review staff report?
Yes, I have no issues with it.
They're recommending approval with no conditions. Straightforward application once again. Any questions, comments? Scott?
Mr. Chairman, through you to the applicant, I was reading your application form and I noticed the reasons why you weren't able to comply with zoning interpretation. Can you explain that to me?
Pardon me?
It's pretty clear. Zoning interpretation was the reason why you weren't able to comply?
Yes. The zoning says a lot of these lots that this gentleman is building are zero lot line. And on the other, so one side is zero, the other side is required to be 1.5. But in this particular instance, and that's because several houses are zeros beside each other. So one's 0, then it's 1.5, the next one's 0, then it's 1.5. But in this instance, he doesn't own the lot beside it, so the lot beside it's not 0. So in the past, whoever gave him building permit allowed this to go through without going to minor variance. They interpreted that you didn't require the 1.5 on that other side. There's someone new in that position now, or someone different is looking at it, and they said, no, you require a minor variance because you're going 1.2. 1.2 is the standard setback when there's another house beside you, except the wording of the bylaw we thought was kind of open to interpretation, and that's how we interpreted it. I hope that's clear.
Any other questions, comments, or motion?
Motion to approve application A 2018-129.
Second? Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next application is A 2018, 130 to 130, or to 374, and 380 and 384 Prospect Ave. In support or opposition, come forward, please. Okay. Good morning. Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
I have, yes.
And they're recommending approval without conditions. I think maybe what we'll do is we'll jump right over. You're in opposition, I take it, or support?
Yes.
Opposition. Your name?
Frida?
Frida. Okay, Frida, I'll give you the floor right now.
My intention is to try and get an understanding about what's being proposed. It says it's staff's opinion that the proposed minor variances will have minimal impact of the surrounding low-rise residential development due to the location and orientation of the building proposed on site. Now, I haven't seen what that building's going to look like, so I'm still confused about how 52 additional vehicles could be coming and going onto the Prospect. It's congested as it is. There's a school there. There's children coming and going. There's school buses coming and going. Yet at the corner of Prospect and Weber, which is just 2 buildings away from this proposed site, there's a stop sign. And I've lived there long enough to know how many times cars come to a rolling stop. And you have to think as you go into that intersection. So I'm asking, will there be something, proper markings of crosswalks, improvement to the stop sign so that people are addressing and using that stop sign? And how will they deal with the ongoing parking of cars on the street when it's already cluttered with cars?
Okay, I guess we'll turn those questions over to staff. There was a parking justification study done. Was there a traffic study done too?
Through you, Mr. Chair, a traffic study has not been done for this application, but a parking study has been conducted. And so the parking study, I have reviewed the parking study, and the parking justification study justifies the proposed rate of 1.07 spaces per unit, which would include 1 space for each unit in addition to 7% visitor parking spaces. And I believe that there would be 28 units in 2 buildings, which does not warrant a traffic impact study, and it won't impact the surrounding network.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Scott?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to either the applicant or to staff, has this type of or form of apartment been built elsewhere and tested as far as parking goes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that the applicant has done surveys from 2 similar buildings, and the buildings are located in the vicinity of this area, so it represents a similar condition, and the surveys shows that the required parking rate is even lower than 1.07. I believe it was something around 1 per unit, including the visitor parking spaces.
Could the applicant advise me as well?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, to member, we, as noted, we completed a parking justification study. The company that we had hired to consult on this matter and prepare this study had gone to several of the adjacent, similar form, low-rise apartment buildings on Prospect Avenue to complete. So in the area, there are several low-rise apartment buildings. They're somewhat of a similar form. However, the proposed buildings on this property will be two separate buildings. But they had assessed those properties and looked at the utilization periods through several periods of the day and determined that the rate, or they established the rate, and then we applied that to our site plan. So as noted, yes, we had looked at similar properties in the area, and they had suggested that this was an appropriate rate, and we are providing visitor parking in addition to the one per unit for space for residents.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to follow up to that, did those other properties include parallel parking spaces, which tend to be the last ones to be utilized, and there are 7 on this site?
Through you, Mr. Chairperson, to member, it is my understanding that those spaces were not, like there are no parallel spaces on the other site. That wasn't specifically included, but I believe, so no, I cannot confirm that they were used.
So how, can I go ahead? So how is that going to address the current situation when there's only 6 vehicles leaving those properties to that of 52 vehicles leaving those properties? And the congestion that's going to occur. And you've got all the activity in the school area, and there isn't proper markings for crosswalks. There's a stop sign, but people don't adhere to that stop sign on most occasions. How will that be addressed?
Units, I think.
Through chairperson to community member, this site in particular, so I believe you're combining the number of parking spaces on 2 separate properties. So this property that we're speaking about right now has 30 parking spaces associated with it. So you're correct when you speak about the combined 2 separate development applications. However, for this one, there's only 30. From what we've established, as addressed by the transportation, it did not warrant a traffic impact study, and we have attempted to efficiently design the development such that for what we can control on the site, that it is efficient and it is safe. If there's other measures outside of our site at this point, we can discuss that with staff. However, it hasn't been flagged as a concern from the overall review of the neighborhood area. And if there's significant concerns that we have about the neighborhood, I would suggest speaking with transportation directly about those. However, we've attempted to take the feedback from staff and the planning studies to this point to incorporate a design on this site for what we're proposing.
Okay, so we're talking about 28 units in 2018-130. That's still a lot of ongoing traffic in an area that's already congested. But I thank you for addressing my concern.
Thank you. Yes, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up to staff, where are we in the site plan review process for this application?
I think you might have to ask the applicant that, because I'm not personally familiar with where we're at with this one. Yeah.
Through you, chairperson to member, we have achieved AIP and are in the process of clearing final conditions for approval.
Okay. Anything else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, quick question just to transportation staff. This is a variance, this parking variance is to the in-force zoning bylaw. The new zoning bylaw is still in the process of being prepared, correct? And do you know what direction the new zoning bylaw is going in terms of parking rates, and would a variance be required under what is emerging as the new parking rates in that zoning bylaw?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the proposed rate in the new zoning bylaw is 1 per unit plus 10% visitor parking spaces.
10 persons visitor parking?
10%, yes.
Okay, so there would be a variance required for visitor parking, but not for the units?
Pardon?
So there would be a variance required for the visitor, but not for the units?
Based on the new zoning bylaw, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I noticed that the building has asked for a building permit, and the environment planning comments are for a tree management plan that will be addressed through the site plan. But just for standard protocol moving forward, I would like to add 2 conditions, one being that the applicant get a building permit, and second, that there will be a tree management plan. Even though it's going to be addressed through the site plan, I'd still like it to be here on this variance. So I will move that this be approved with the 2 added conditions.
Just one question, is that able to be met within the next 12 months?
I think that depends on the applicant and how quickly they would be proceeding with their development proposal.
So you've got 12 months to fulfill that condition. Is that practical?
It's
I
not a
believe so.
consent, though.
No.
Yeah.
We are.
It's variance. not a
Variance,
consent.
okay. All right. So the application is amended with the 2 conditions. Second, Mike, second, all in favor? All opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, next application is A 2018, 131, 414, and 424 Prospect Ave. Nature of the application is the same as the one that we've just heard. There was a recommendation without conditions. Questions, comments? Bob?
Yeah, same as the previous application, I'd like to add the 2 extra conditions for tree management and building permit.
All right. Scott?
Just a comment through you, Mr. Chairman. I will be supporting this particular application. I think it's a much more functional site. And I didn't believe that for the last one, but I just wanted to add that's the reason why.
Okay, thank you. Motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that this be approved with the 2 added conditions.
Second? Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018, 132. It's 114 to 120 Victoria Street South. Anyone? Yes.
Before you begin considering this application, I just wanted to advise the committee that there was a mapping error. It inadvertently showed only a portion of the subject lands. There has been a corrected map provided to the committee as part of the report. I just wanted that to go on record, that it applies to the entirety of the property.
Right, and you're also recommending approval with no conditions, correct?
That is correct.
The other one
Mr.
indicated
Chair.
conditions, yeah. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Does anyone have any questions or comments? It's a pretty straightforward application. Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant, the addition of the amenity space on the roof is a good idea. I like that. And I would, again, just because we are doing it all the time, I'd like to add the 1 condition of a building permit.
All right. Its recommendation is amended. Anyone support? Second the motion?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks. Next applications, A 2018-133. That's 121 Walter Street. Support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning.
Good
Your
morning.
name?
Lisa Zonleiter, I'm the homeowner.
Okay, Lisa, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
I have,
And they're
yes.
recommending approval with a condition. Have you submitted for building permit?
Sorry?
You submitted for building permit?
No, not yet.
Okay, so I think maybe we should add a second condition. It's just a building permit condition
Okay.
as well. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the applicant, what is the size and number of bedrooms in the accessory apartment being proposed?
The size of the parking?
Size of the accessory apartment, the apartment you're creating, number of bedrooms and size?
I don't have that available with me. I know the square footage.
Sure.
It's 1920 square feet, the dwelling itself.
Oh, the dwelling itself. Just the size of the apartment you'll be creating?
It's the basement. I don't have those numbers prepared. So it would be, I guess, the equivalent of the main floor minus the garage. So I don't have that right now.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, the reason I've asked that question is I'm a bit concerned that there might be a parking issue unless there's control over the number of bedrooms and size of the unit, and maybe even who the homeowner rents to, because you'll be shuffling cars back and forth in the driveway. I would love to have imposed a condition that it be a certain square footage or size, but we don't have that. So if you get too many bedrooms, you're going to end up with a mess with cars. Just my...
Can I just add something? So we do have a spot in the garage, and then we do have enough room for 2 cars in tandem. That's how long the actual driveway is, because we do with no issue. It doesn't breach onto the sidewalk or anything like that. So there's 3 if you do count the garage. So there would be some room for maneuvering.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this be approved with the one condition.
2 conditions, building permit.
2 conditions. Thank you for reminding me about building permits.
Yeah.
So I move that this be approved with 2 conditions as amended.
Second? Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-134, 76 Grand Flats Trail. Supporter opposition, come forward, please. Hello, Pat. Similar application, only this one is imposing a condition on the maximum building height. Have you submitted for a building permit already?
I'm not sure about that. I think it is.
Because building comments that they provided a building permit, so maybe we'll look at amending that and just adding a second condition to that as well. Any questions or comments? Motion? Sure.
Motion to approve application A 2018-134, subject to 2 conditions.
All right, second. Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thanks. Next application is A 2018-135, 171 River Trail Ave. Similar application again, Pat, and this one is a recommendation for approval with conditions. And once again, we'll just add a 3rd condition for the building permit. Any questions, comments? Scott?
Again, not to be sarcastic, but the zoning interpretation, the reason why you can't comply is problematic for me.
Okay.
We've never seen this before. This is a first.
You mean it's our interpretation is good, is valid, or what do you mean problematic?
As an excuse to why you can't comply. I think it's more so than you probably have market conditions and you have a buyer that likes a little bigger house.
Well, yes. But technically speaking, if you were building the house just on its own, the 1.5 meters in our interpretation is there because you're going to have 0 on the other side as well. In my opinion, it's a little bit of a weakness in the writing of the bylaw.
Jennifer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really don't want to delay this, but I have a concern about approving or imposing a condition for lot elevations that we don't have before us. So I'm wondering, through Mr. Chair, to the Secretary Treasurer, if that's something we can get before we actually formally approve the application.
Jennifer or Julianne, did you have your hand up? No?
Yes. I believe the adjacent property is proposed as a park site. And as such, there are building code restrictions with respect to, or potential restrictions with respect to fenestration on the side that is adjacent to the park. And that is why staff has asked for elevation drawings for that purpose. It's not something that we deal with often because not every property is adjacent to a park. That's the nature of the request.
To be clear, I'm not suggesting that I have a concern with imposing the condition, but it says that the proposed single detached dwelling be constructed in accordance with the approved priority lot elevations. We don't have those before us, so I do not feel comfortable attaching a condition requiring elevations that I haven't seen, that we don't have actually in front of us today.
Through you, Mr. Chair, priority lotting is established at the plan of subdivision stage, and it is a condition of the plan of subdivision to identify priority lots within a plan of subdivision. A lot that is adjacent to a park is considered a priority lot, and that is a requirement of the subdivision. We would always have to review elevations in accordance with the plan of subdivision. This is not unusual for that condition. It's not an unusual condition. If the committee is concerned about that, perhaps rewording the condition is an option.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my concern is this condition suggests that the elevations exist and have been approved. I just think they should be part of the application. If we're going to be imposing construction in accordance with existing lot elevations, they should be here.
Do you have elevations, Pat?
I honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think he has submitted plans already. And in the past, he's had to have this same condition, and he's met all the conditions, and he's changed his plans to meet the city requirements. It's not going to be an issue.
Right. Well, and it's a satisfaction of the city's director of planning as well, which does maintain some control on it. So I hear my colleagues' concern, but I don't like to defer an application unnecessarily. That's my comments. So, anyone else have any comments or questions or motion? Scott?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
All right. Second?
I'll second as as amended with the third condition for building permit.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-136. That's 248 Shady Glen Crescent. Anyone here in support or opposition? Come forward, please. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Staff's recommending approval with a condition, which is simply a building permit condition. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Scott?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through to the applicant. Do you have any thoughts on putting a kind of a privacy screen on the, trying to think what side it is. It's the side of the house that's next to 244, your neighbor?
At this time, we didn't plan on it.
Okay.
In speaking with our neighbor, they didn't have any issues.
Okay. Fair enough. So you've talked to your neighbor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Both sides.
All right. Anyone else? Bob?
Just a quick question, Mr. Chair, through you to the applicant. I'm assuming from the photograph this is an existing deck, and we're just legalizing it. So my question would be, did you folks build it, or did you have a contractor build it, or was it there when you bought the house?
Yeah, it was the deck that was provided when we bought the home. When the home was built, we're going to be tearing it down and making it bigger.
Okay. Anyone else? Motion? Scott?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Second? Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-137. It's 1 Goodridge Drive. Anyone here support or opposition, come forward, please. No one here? We'll just put it down to the bottom for right now. Next application is A 2018-138. That's 242, 254, 262 Queen Street South. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
At this time, Mr. Chair, I have to declare a conflict. This property is adjacent to an apartment building owned by Kitchener Housing, and I am the chair of Kitchener Housing, so I will be outside.
Okay, we'll just go down there. Okay, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Pierre Chauvin with MHBC Planning, here on behalf of the applicant in support of the application.
Okay, staff's recommending approval with conditions. I believe there's 3 conditions. There was no third-party agency comments that weren't picked up or that were noted. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to comment that I think this is a great application, addresses some needs and provincial concerns, and is sensitive to the surroundings and the cultural heritage context, and I'm prepared to support the application.
All right, this is a motion on the floor. Second.
That wasn't a motion. I'm just putting my position out there at this point.
Well, is there a motion on the floor then?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your name?
My name's Peter Eglin.
Okay, Peter, I guess you're in support or opposition?
I'm in opposition.
Opposition. And I'll give you the floor right now then.
I'm in opposition to that part of the application that concerns the increase of the height from 8 to 10 stories. I'm a member of the public. I have no personal stake in this issue. I have a substantive point and 3 procedural questions. The substantive point is that I simply don't like the idea of a 10-story building in a heritage district. I realize this has been debated to death, and I'm not going to pursue it. I just don't like it. The procedural questions are more important. And if I may just be ignorant of it, of the way these things are usually done, but is there a precedent for a 20 to 25%, depending how you calculate it, increase in the height of a building of this sort of size being regarded as a minor variance? If there is a precedent, should it be possible, that's my second point, to increase the size of a building by this much at the Committee of Adjustment rather than through Council? And thirdly, and I may be wrong about this, but did not Council, when approving this building, this development, approve an 8-story building, not a 10-story one?
I'll pass those questions over to staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have the file planner here who is more familiar with the application. Perhaps Mr. Stevenson can address some of the questions raised by the resident.
Good morning, Chair.
The two remaining buildings and the buildings that are proposed to be retained did proceed to a council consideration after being considered by the Heritage Committee. The decision was to retain those two buildings. Since that time, the building has been revised, and it is now showing a 10-story building to accommodate the retained buildings that are still located along Queen Street. Following the decision of the Committee of Adjustment today, as well as the decision of the Site Plan Review Committee tomorrow, Heritage approval process would proceed for the ultimate new building design, and that would continue through to council. So council will have an opportunity to consider the taller building through the heritage permit process.
All right. Does that answer your question?
Well, it doesn't address the question of precedent, but I appreciate the clarification of the process, which I wasn't aware of. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Scott?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just a question for staff. So there was an earlier version of this development without the heritage structures retained and a slightly lower building?
Through the chair, that is correct. The original application that was considered by the Heritage Committee proposed to demolish the 3 buildings. The approval was not granted for 2 of the 3 buildings, and given that result, the building was amended from an 8-story to a 10-story proposal. So it has evolved through the approval process.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or a motion? Scott?
Just a comment again, Mr. Chairman. I'll support my colleague to the left here. I think that what has been done from a heritage perspective with this development is excellent, and the fact that they've perhaps had to give in a little on the height is more than worthy, so I'm willing to support.
All right, is that a motion? Yes. All right, so there's a motion on the floor. I concur as well. Do I have a second? Jennifer?
I just had, sorry, Mr. Chair, I just had one quick question.
Sure.
I think I'm going to put it through you to the applicant about other buildings in the vicinity of a similar height.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there are a number of other tall buildings in the area, and that's, I think, part of the context that we need to realize in this particular application. There's immediately abutting us, there's a 7 or 8-story building. Behind us is 7 stories. Across the road from us is 15 stories. And on the corner, just further to the, I'll call it south, is another 15-story building. So contextually, yes, there's a number of tall buildings in varying heights that this particular building would, in my mind, fit in. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next application is A 2018-139, that's 16 Chapel Hill Drive. Support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes, I did.
We're recommending approval with conditions. Okay. Maybe you can just explain your application to us. I know that staff had noticed that there's, when they did a site inspection, that there's an exorbitant amount of tires on site, and there was a concern that you were running a business from here. Is that the case?
It's basically tire storage for the owner. He's got a couple of vehicles and he swaps out winter tires and stuff like that.
Okay.
In fact, I'm his neighbor and I keep my tires there as well.
Anyone have any questions, comments? Bob?
Mr. Chair, through you to the applicant, the condition number 3 says that that puts a timeline of this must be completed by May 30th of next year, which is springtime. Is that enough time for you to
Yeah, I think
fulfill?
so, yeah. Yeah.
Then I have no objection.
All right, anyone else? Motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that this be approved with the 3 conditions as in the staff report.
Second? Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next applications, A 2018-140, that's 405 and 409 Nyberg Street. Support or opposition, come forward, please.
Good morning. Kristen Barrisdale from GSP Group, agents acting on behalf of the registered property owner.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report? First off, there's a condition from GRCA that we'll need to include in this as well.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments?
No.
All right. Questions or comments, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question of staff. Do you have any idea of the status of the site plan application and when approval might be achieved?
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, that's perhaps a question for the applicant. I do not look at every single site plan application as they are distributed to other staff members. Perhaps Ms. Baresdale will be able to answer that question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant has had pre-submission discussions with city staff. However, we have not made a formal site plan application at this point.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I'm asking the question is because of the condition that's being recommended, constructing the parking lot within 6 months to the date of site plan approval. If site plan approval would have been achieved this November, we may not get it constructed, trying to lay down asphalt, etc. So I'm thinking I'd like to change that to within 9 months of the date of site plan approval as a friendly amendment.
All right. Anything else? So application recommendations amended. Is there a motion? Scott?
I'll move approval as amended by my condition.
Okay, second?
Just a quick question, Mr. Chair. Does that include the GRCA fee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Second? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A 2018-141. That's 1800 Victoria Street North. Support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning. Your name?
Tom Welsman.
Hi, Tom. Have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes.
Okay. Recommending approval, subject to one condition, is site plan application. And that's it. No other third-party comments. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Tom? It's a fairly straightforward application. And a motion? And with the condition, second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is a B 2018-121. That's 59 Irvin Street. Anyone here support or opposition, come forward, please.
Through the chair, just as you start considering the application, it was accidentally omitted about the condition regarding a reference plan. I will require it for the lot addition. It was accidentally omitted out of the recommendation for the condition requiring a reference plan, a new reference plan. So I will require it to do the transaction.
So there'll be a reference plan condition. And then there's existing services. Anyways, we'll get to that. Okay, your name?
Trevor Hawkins, MHPC, in support of the application.
All right, recommending approval with conditions is one condition that was just added to the application. And that's where we currently sit. I assume you're all in opposition?
Correct.
Okay, we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Just one word of advice. If we've already heard a comment from someone, we really don't need to hear it twice. You can all have an opportunity, or you can, if you're here as a delegation, one of you can speak on behalf of everyone. I'm not sure if you're organized or not, so we'll start with you.
Certainly.
Sorry, your name?
My name's Dan Rice. I'm a homeowner at 26 Pearl Place, third house in from the proposed site. I can't speak to the people with me. We're not a delegation as such, but I live on the site with my wife and two young daughters, 1 and 3, and we purchased the Pearl Place, knowing that eventually a building would go in front of us. I've seen firsthand, and you can see today how our community is represented. It's a small laneway, but several of the homeowners are represented here today. And one of the reasons we purchased it was, living in the heart of downtown, seeing that community is super important to us. Knowing that the building was go there, we reviewed previous plans for the last building, and the design did not have much effect on our streetscape, referring to the report and development, the Technical Service Committee on June 21st, 2010 for the previous proposed site plan. This, however, did not involve the severance and conveyance of 59 Irving to Killam Apartments that's being discussed today. As stated in the staff report in front of you on the second page, Killam's got several potential plans for this site, one of which is to potentially accommodate some minor expansion of the parking area to be dealt with through that site development. This part greatly concerns me, as I'm strongly against Pearl Place to be used as a thoroughfare to this potential parking zone. As such, I've not seen the site development plan, and I will not have any say on it when it's presented to the city, so I am here today to register my concerns to your committee. Pearl's a small laneway. It's only 17 feet in diameter, and it already makes it difficult for 2 cars to pass and very difficult for people to turn around already without using our private property as it is. The effect of the same small laneway creates that intimate feel on their street, but it also doesn't allow for more traffic than currently supported due to our safety concerns. In the 2010 report that I spoke about earlier, Heritage Planner Leon Benasson noted in his report that the recognition of the narrow setting and intimate feel of existing Pearl Place streetscape, that landscaping should be introduced on that property to create the visually intimate community on Pearl Place, and this particular an attempt to mitigate the impact of use of the proposed development and parking lot from our existing residential development on that east side. Even city planners have recognized the uniqueness and the limitations of our streets to support more energy without destroying its character. Our community is small, but like I said, we work together. We do want to be partners with Killam REIT in making this area a better one, but the potential for the street to be used as a thoroughfare is what I'm most against. My daughters will soon be of school age. There is no sidewalk there, nor is there potential to create one on Pearl. It's a large safety concern. I want to be on record that we object to that severance and conveyance of the Irving property to the Killam Apartment REIT if our place is used as an access point or a thoroughfare to the development site. Thank you for your time today. I do appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Terry Kavanaugh from...
Push the button.
Oh. Hello, I'm Terry Kavanaugh, and I'm part owner of 24 Pearl Place, and I am not, again, going to object to the development, but with 2 conditions: that Pearl Place is not used as a thoroughfare, and the second condition is it's been suggested that this severance and conveyance of this property from Urban would be used to increase green grass space for water can fall out from the rain and things. So my condition on that part would be the part that this lot would not be used also for parking at any time in the future. That's my neighbor here said a lot more than I have to say, but those are the safety issues I doubly endorse. A few years ago, my son was snowplowing Pearl Place with his snowplow as a snowblower because the city thought the street was too narrow to send a snowplow down. So this is and it has no sidewalks. So pedestrians are definitely at risk if you were to turn this into a thoroughfare. Thank you.
My name's Nancy Kavanagh. I'm also an owner of 24 Pearl Place. I have a couple of questions that I'm hoping that the staff may be able to answer them for me. Is there an urban design guide that has been submitted or a conceptual design plan at this point?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this property is subject to site plan approval. It's my understanding that the property has received approval in principle. The applicant is here who could probably go through more details of the design because I was not personally involved in this particular file. But in speaking to the site planner that was involved in, Mr. Bateman, he indicated to me that it has gone through site plan approval, which would have required an urban design brief, possibly even elevations and obviously site drawings that are required. And it's gone to the approval in principle stage. So that means that it is one step closer to their final approval. But perhaps the applicant can add a little bit more detail in terms of what was submitted as part of their application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify some of the comments we've already heard. This is a lot addition, so the matters that relate to the site plan are separate from the lot addition. The purpose of the lot addition is really to provide a little bit of space in the back corner. There's no intention to spill the parking onto that space. We are looking at options that include amenity space and green space. There's no changes proposed. The access to the site was proposed from Scott Street. It still is. There's no change. The residents and occupants of the commercial building associated with the project would use Scott Street to come and go from the site. Pearl Place is only intended to be used for the garbage truck to move in and out, which happens infrequently. So there's no anticipation that traffic loads would increase on Pearl Place as a result of the lot addition. The application has gone through the site plan process. Be happy to sit down with the residents after this meeting and show them the plans. I did bring some of them with us. We do have a large copy as well that they could have a look at, and I do have some elevations that they could look at after this meeting if they're interested in asking further questions.
Okay, thank you. I think it would have been prudent if those plans were part of this application, as it makes it, it does bear down on our decision as to how the fabric all fits together and is applied to the new lot application. I think if you have those plans with you as a committee, we'd like to see them as well. That's what I'm hearing buzzing around the table here too. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, the reason that I asked whether there is a design, a conceptual plan available, because in your staff report here, it states that the lot addition is intended only to provide additional area, land area, that would be considered pervious for the purpose of stormwater management considerations, additional landscape open space area, and to potentially accommodate some minor expansion of the parking area. So what I would like to know is what's the number of proposed surface parking spots at this development?
Right, okay. So as soon as we get the plan, then we'll have a look at it. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
Chris Jacinto. I own 8 and 10 Pearl Place. My neighbors have addressed all my concerns. I'm just here as support.
Okay, thank you.
Courtney Painshort. I own 91 Scott Street, and my driveway is on Pearl Place. And yes, I just would like to see a condition on this that Pearl Place not be used as a thoroughfare. When they're speaking specifically of garbage trucks back down Pearl Place and then drive out because they can't turn around, just to illustrate how narrow it is.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay.
Not bad.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, sure. Scott.
Yeah, while we're waiting here, the site plan I'm looking at on the overhead does not show the property in question.
No.
Which concerns me. Maybe the applicant can explain that.
It would have to be
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we're anticipating approval from the committee before we amend the site plan to include the parcel. So we've had preliminary discussions with city staff about including this parcel. And as noted by some of the residents, the intent is more, if we look at the driveway entrance from Pearl Place, there's a few parking spaces in that back corner. And the addition of this land will allow us to just shift that parking to make it a slightly better degree or entrance into the site, and possibly pick up parking spaces on the existing parcel. Whereas there's no parking proposed at this time on the proposed lot addition. So the lot addition would be effectively an opportunity to naturalize an area and provide amenity space, outdoor amenity space for the residents, as well as something that we'd be willing to entertain discussions with residents of Pearl Place and the city as to whether some type of public-private amenity space could be orchestrated.
Through you, Mr. Chair, without the additional lot, could you make this work? There's no requirement for parking variances or anything without that additional lot?
Yeah, the lot addition is not really going to benefit the parking supply of the project. It's an opportunity when assembling land in intensification areas, if there's an opportunity to acquire additional land to create some efficiencies on the parcel. That's kind of where this scenario, we're able to, by adding this land, create some better efficiencies in that back corner, as well as providing amenity space for the residents, more amenity space than currently exists in the plan.
And as one of the conditions, criteria, as you know, in considering a lot severance of this nature is to ensure that it's not premature and that it's in the public interest. And I think to understand that, there should be a preliminary concept here to show us what you're talking about in terms of creating those efficiencies. Because otherwise, I'm not seeing what the actual intended use is of the site and how we can ensure that the concerns of the residents are addressed. I think we need to see some sort of concept plan that we can then reduce to an agreement of some sort.
Mr. Chair, I think we heard one of the primary concerns of the residents was that Pearl Place wouldn't be used as a thoroughfare or access for the development, and it won't be. It's not part of the proposal. The proposed access remains from Scott Street.
Julianne?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Two things. One, the site plan does show the primary access coming off of Scott Street, so that should give a little bit of comfort in terms of that Pearl Place was never intended to be any primary or secondary or any access point to these lands. That said, though, I understand and appreciate the residents' concerns. My understanding is that the file planner has a meeting set up after this meeting with some of the residents to go over some of the site plan type of concerns, as the committee is dealing primarily today with just the whether or not the lot addition is appropriate and whether it should be added on. As part of a future site plan, should the lands be acquired, the site plan would have to be amended to show those lands and to incorporate that into the design as per Ms. Meter's comments.
So, in actuality, it might be prudent if we were to consider this that there was an additional condition, and that would be to let the Director of Planning approve an amended site plan that would incorporate these lands in accordance with its true intended use, such as not to include parking. As a suggestion.
I think staff would be supportive of that,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to be very blunt. I'm having a hard time supporting the application at this time. First of all, again, the site plan we're seeing, which has approval, has a full moved access out on the Pearl, and we don't have the planner here that's telling us that might be restricted to garbage trucks only. This is not a logical addition to a development site. It's like a pimple being added on, and I have a real problem with that until I see a plan. So if it's going to be approved without a plan on it, I can't support it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the condition you're proposing. I think that would address my concerns. My concern to the residents is that without that addition, this application could perhaps go ahead as is without that additional land, in which case you're actually, those lands may actually make it a better development from your perspective because of the landscaping it's going to offer in open space. So I wouldn't want to inhibit them from moving ahead with that addition. I think my concerns are addressed with the proposed condition of the chairman.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add that Scott Street would be the only access to the site, and the other access on Pearl Place would be gated, so it would be accessible by the garbage truck only.
So there's a gate control on it, is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. Yes, sorry.
I think as stated by everyone on our side of the table here, that we are certainly willing to listen and work with the company, and we appreciate them reaching out to us and appreciate you taking the time to consider this. Some of this is new information to us. This was the first chance that we had to speak, so we felt it imprudent to speak up. Thank you.
Okay, good, thanks. And we are going to, if we are going to vote on this or consider it, we will be including that additional condition, which will preclude parking on that site, which I think should address a lot of your concerns as well. So, yes.
I have a brief written statement that I would like to submit to the Committee of Adjustments to be included in, I guess, your final minutes or report. I'm not quite sure of the process here, so if I could hand this over at the end or to...
You can just give it to Holly there,
sure,
and she'll
that
take
would
it.
be great.
Okay,
Thank you
great.
very much.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anything further from anyone?
May I ask a brief question?
Yes, sure.
So I'm very glad to hear that the entrance off of Pearl Place is gated. Does the site plan require them to do that and require them to keep the gate shut when the garbage trucks aren't using it? Like, can we restrict them in that way? Because it's very easy to use it, leave a gate open, and then it becomes a de facto entrance.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that will be a requirement of the site plan approval. And as I stated before, there is a scheduled meeting with Brian Bateman, the file planner. I don't know which one of you has a meeting with him, but perhaps if you have a couple of these site plan types of questions, I think it's later this morning after this meeting. So it might be a good opportunity just to speak with Brian about those concerns.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, if there's nothing further, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, yes. Refresh my memory, is there an additional condition?
Yes, there's an additional condition with the site plan approval, revised site plan approval, or site plan amendment to the existing approved plan, whichever the case would be, and that would then specifically preclude that lot addition from being used as parking.
On that case, Mr. Chair, I move that this be approved as amended.
And the reference plan as well.
And the reference plan.
Yeah, you're right, yeah. Second, Mike seconds, all in favor? Carried, opposed? one? Great, thank you. All right, next application is B 2018-122. Anyone here in support or opposition, come forward, please. We'll just make a note that there was a letter of opposition, I suppose you could call it that was submitted to committee this morning. I think we had that in our package. All right. Okay, good morning. Your name?
Good morning. Kevin Muir, GSP Group. We're representing the applicant and owner for the property.
Okay, Kevin, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
I have, yes.
They're recommending approval with 5 conditions. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I'm wondering whether the applicant has seen the letter that has come in?
Yes, I have.
Would you care to comment on that?
This is a project that's been ongoing for the better part of a decade now, beginning in 2010. We've been through every Planning Act approval up to this point. There's a comprehensive site plan approval that applies to essentially the entirety of the site, with the exception of the 3 buildings that are shaded in dark gray on the first cover of the staff report. As part of the site plan approval, there were comprehensive securities taken for the site, for both the engineering side as well as the landscape side, in the order of $1 million each. So there's a lot of securities in place to make sure that the developer essentially completes the site as site plan approved. The process is somewhat complicated in the fact that there's one developer of the site, which is the applicant for this subject application, as well as there's 2 builders, being the applicant and another one who did the townhouse development as part of the project. So there's an interrelationship in terms of responsibilities for that. So it's challenging in that sense. The applicant has, over the course of time, has been repairing road issues in terms of improvements in that, and ultimately they would have to be cleared off by the city in terms of getting their securities back. So.
Any other questions or comments or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve.
Second? Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is B 2018-123. Anyone in support or opposition, come forward, please. Good morning again. How are you?
Hello again.
Staff's recommending approval. There is GRCA condition to get included, and a regional condition, or regional conditions as well, that need to be inserted. Pardon me? And the reference plan. So we need to include all of those conditions to this recommendation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there has been some changes to the conditions of approval. I brought copies with me today. The region has withdrawn their condition with regards to an archaeological assessment. They've deferred it to the zone change. I've highlighted it in yellow. They've deferred it to the zone change application. Through additional discussions as well with staff, condition number 4A that's contained in the staff report, we've removed the terminology that refers to receive final approval. So 4A has been modified to say that the owner shall enter into an agreement with the City of Kitchener to be prepared by the city solicitor and registered on title for the severed portion, which shall include the following: A, that prior to final endorsement of the deed, the owner shall apply for a zoning bylaw amendment and major modification to draft plan of subdivision 30T 11205 to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. I also have copies of that wording as well.
Okay, based upon this letter, we don't require the regional condition then. All right. Okay, staff in agreement with revised conditions?
Staff's in agreement, yeah.
Okay, so that can be revised accordingly on the recommendation as it stands right now. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was one of my questions. I had just one other quick question. The configuration of the lands that we are adding as a lot addition is the correct version of it on page, I guess it's 3 of the staff report versus page 1?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Through you, Mr. Chair, if you're asking is the correct version, yes, it looks like there's a slight sliver of land, a triangular sliver that has not been, I don't know the ownership status of that. Perhaps the applicant can clarify. There's a triangular sliver that is adjacent to the parcel that is being added onto to the plans to the, I guess it would be to, I don't know if it's to the north or south. Anyways, Kristen, there's a little tiny
yes,
sliver.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Missing.
Yes, you're correct. The image on page 3 is actually the accurate reflection of the property line. That triangular piece has been omitted from the conveyance because it reflects or it follows the wetland setback that's associated with the creek.
And just one comment, this is a lot addition application with a concept plan. That would have helped with the last one.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Sitting with recommendation with some amendments to it that we already went through. That's where the application is. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the application subject to the 4 conditions with the amendment to condition 4A.
Second.
And the reference plan.
Yeah. Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is B 2018-124, 34 3rd Ave. Support or opposition, come forward. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your name?
Zoran.
Okay. This one we need regional condition as well. Further regional condition. They just picked up the fee and not the condition. So we need to insert that. Have you had an opportunity to review staff report?
Yes.
Do you have any questions or
no
comments? You understand it? Yeah, noise warning clause. Okay. Any questions, comments? Scott?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a question for staff. There are no variants associated with this application?
No, there have been no variances identified.
Okay.
All right. We didn't receive anything from Hydro, right? Okay. All right. No questions,
Mr. Mr. Chair, I'll move that the application B 2018-124 be approved, subject to the conditions set out in the staff report.
And the addition of the noise clause.
And
condition
the
from
regional
region.
noise clause.
Yep. Yeah, the region fee was in there, they missed the noise clause. All right, so motion's on the floor, second. Bob, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is B 2018-125, at 60 Keel Street. Anyone support or opposition, come forward, please. Okay, there is, before we get into this, there's GRCA conditions, regional conditions, and condition number 4, it says that they have to pay the 5% of the value of the lands. There was a calculation in staff's report. It might be prudent to put that number, that calculation, in this condition as well, in the amount of $4,556.76. That all being said, good morning. Your name?
Good morning.
Have you had an opportunity to review staff report?
Yes, I read it.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments?
I'm not really that familiar, but seems like these are standard conditions. The only one, item number 9, it talks about the basement, but I'm assuming it's a standard. This particular property or single homes that I'm planning to build, they don't have a basement, or just because of the GRCA said we cannot have a basement there based on their criteria, but that's all. So it's designed without a basement.
These are pretty much standard conditions.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you're opposed?
Turn on the mic, please, madam.
Isabel Park. Yes. Okay. Well, we live next door, 60 Keel Street, and we have a concern about the building that's going to be beside us. It's very close to the property line because the lots are just small. We're concerned about the movement of when they're digging and whatnot, the loosening of the ground, and etc. About our garage. Our garage is very close to the property line also. And then of the runoff of water, I was told to mention that too. If you're going to build up the backyard, the backyards are very low. We're afraid that we might get a runoff of water if you build it up too much.
Okay.
About our garage.
That will all be covered through the building permit process. They've got deposits and guidelines that have to be followed and inspections that the inspector comes out and ensures that those things aren't done to the best of their abilities. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
yeah, we just wanted to know that we're
valid
concerned
concern.
about the garage.
Yep,
It's old, but it's ours.
Yeah, valid concern. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I can add to that, just so we're clear, there's no variance being sought for the side yard setbacks. So they can build that close as of right, assuming that the severance is granted. That is the zoning regulations for setbacks.
Yes, I understand that. I was just told to come and just let them know that we were concerned about that.
And the committee appreciates all comments.
Question for the lady who's asking the question. Do you have a survey of your property that shows where the location of the garage is? Because I was actually going to ask that question because it's very close to the fence line.
Well, on that side of the property, you had a survey done, right?
We have the survey.
Yeah, so we're going by that survey line.
Yes, his severance sketch it's not an official survey that I can see. It's not a full survey. It doesn't show your garage, which an official survey would. It's simply a severance sketch. So.
Yeah. No, I don't have one here.
Anything else? Anyone else? Motion? Comment? Mike?
Yeah, a motion to approve the application B 2018-125.
With the amended conditions?
With the amended conditions.
All right. Second? Bob, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is B 2018-126. It's 53 Second Ave. Anyone support or opposition, come forward, please. Okay, this... Thank you. Once again, there's 2 regional conditions that need to be added to this. Okay, have you had an opportunity to review staff's report?
Yes.
Okay, and your name, sorry?
Nanad, owner.
Okay. In staff's report, I just want to draw your attention to it, it's bolded that there is a development freeze for this property. And it says there's an anticipated timing, but as far as we know, that's not the confirmed timing yet. So you are under a development freeze on this property. Just so it's brought to your attention. Do you know what that means, a development freeze?
No, sorry, can you
It means you
repeat?
can't do anything with, you can't develop the property, you can't do what you're planning on doing right now until that freeze is lifted.
When is the freeze?
Not too sure. It says anticipated as the end of this year, but I don't know.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
perhaps I can provide some further information. The development freeze is tied to the final stage of the Freeport pumping station, which requires some off-site works, including some force main work. I believe that they are nearing completion, that work. We are getting towards the end of 2018. It's my further understanding that I think it's probably early in the new year that the work is actually going to be completed. That doesn't preclude the applicant from making applications and perhaps doing some of that type of work, but actual completion of the work would not be possible because of the freeze.
Scott?
Just to clarify through you, Mr. Chairman, to staff, so they could fulfill all the conditions, endorse the deeds, create the lots, they simply can't get permits, that's what you're saying?
I don't know that they could complete the deeds because of the freeze, but they could do their applications, any other applications that they have to go through. They could start on that. They couldn't complete. We wouldn't be able to create the lot because there's no capacity.
You essentially
it's a
would
capacity issue, yeah.
Get it ready for endorsement.
Correct,
That's
yeah.
it. Okay.
You can satisfy conditions.
So the follow-up would be, do we have assurance that they can do that within 1 year of the conditions being imposed?
No.
There is assurance there, yes.
Okay.
Jennifer, did you have something?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if the conditions are all fulfilled, I think I don't see what's here that would prevent them from proceeding with the conveyance and building permits, regardless of the development freeze. I think there has to be something imposed against it in order to actually hold the property for the additional capacity of one lot. I'm not sure. I don't know if I think that we need that, but I just don't see how we actually freeze the development if the conditions are cleared. I don't think there's anything in law that we can do to stop them from proceeding.
I don't know if you get a demolition permit.
There's applicable law isn't servicing.
Don't know.
Okay. I'm satisfied with the application as it's proposed.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to...
Good morning, Chair. My name is Tanya Yarosvik. I own a house on 2nd Avenue. The lady beside me is Shahrazad Taib. She do apologize. Her English is not perfect. So she asked me to represent her, that I can talk on her behalf. 2nd Avenue is old household, and we do really love that. We are over there. We own the house more than 15 years. We are opposing this beautiful property to be split on a half and to have each property wide like a 10 meters, which is not enough for a decent house except to go up like 2 or 3 floors. We don't know what builders have a plans to build. Is it a single house, 2 floors or duplex? We already have some constructions in our streets. Next construction to my house that these councilors already approved, it's 2 duplexes that they are really so close to the border line. I know that by law is 1.4 meters to be built from the border line. The damage is essential, so we assume that the next property that you're gonna approve is gonna be the same. The damage will be essential because they don't have enough space to dig or excavate. For example, damage to my property is already 4 feet along the border line. Entire property is damaged. They dig 4 feet of my property, so we are afraid that the new development will be the same, and we would like to this property stay as one whole instead of splitting for 10 meters each, which is just ridiculously small. Thank you.
Just for the comment before, we did get the demolition control process approved. And for the lady's question, everything is going to be done by the law and zoning. So I don't see any big concern on my part.
That's what we were told for so many building constructions on the 2nd Avenue, that everything will be done by the law. From the noise, from the work done from 7:30 until a.m. until 7 in the evening, from the shaking the houses, from digging the road, like Second Avenue Road. I'm not talking like from all the noise. Nothing is done according to law. As I mentioned, 4 feet of my property is not according to law. So, but now we are talking about 53 2nd Avenue, so we are afraid that everything will happen the same.
All right, well, it's got to be done, the building has to be done in accordance with the bylaws because there's building issues that are permitted and there's inspectors that come out and inspect and manage that part of the process. We're here to look at a severance. I would assume that you're building 2 semis or semi?
2 duplexes, yes.
2 duplexes, okay. All right, so that's what's planned for the site, and this is a severance application only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Sharzad Tayyib. I own the 59 Avenue, and also our driveway is too narrow. Like, it's going to be too close to my property.
All right.
And it's high, like duplex is going to be, it's high beside my building, house.
All right, there's bylaws that they have
I'm
to...
not agree with it.
There's bylaws that they have to adhere to, so that's already all in place. Yes, Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for staff. My read of the zoning bylaws, this property could build as of right a new semi. A lot of properties in the area have chosen to do so. What would the side yard setbacks be for the semi? Would it be the same as for the single?
Through you, Mr. Chair, without having the bylaw right in front of me, I would think so, yes, because they're in the same zone. It differs when it's a different, like a higher building, like a multiple or something.
So minimum 1.2 for detached, minimum 1.2 for semi. Okay, thanks.
All right. Is there any other questions? Comments?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that application B 2018-126 be approved, subject to the conditions set out in the staff report.
And the revised regional condition.
I always miss one.
Yeah, that one as well. Okay, so that's the motion. Second. Scott, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is B 2018-127. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. Scott Patterson here on behalf of the applicant.
All right, Scott. Staff's recommending approval with 2 conditions. These are just standard conditions. It's a fairly straightforward application. We don't see many of these, but it's not unusual. Is there any questions or comments or motion? Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move support for the application subject to the conditions.
Second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Yeah, I know, I see him. Last application, 2018-137. Support or opposition? Good morning, how are you? Good. Is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Staff's recommending approval with conditions. I don't know, I was just looking at this. I think in preservation of streetscape, wouldn't mind seeing the condition number 2 maybe tightened up a little bit better. I'm just wondering if there's a need for some type of a decorative fence or something like that as well, besides just landscaping.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this site is in an industrial park, an industrial area. The site is fairly, has a significant landscaped area already. We will be requesting that site plan as indicated, and the property is subject to site plan approval anyways. Through the site plan approval process, we would be firming up what the landscaping will be, what it will look like, whether that be trees, shrubbery, grass, or combination thereof, and if any fencing would be required at that time.
Okay, so there will be a site plan approval required?
Yes, there
It's
will
not
be.
one of the conditions here, is it? So we probably need site plan approval. Yes, Jennifer, fire.
Okay. Just burning question for me is, it says here that these are temporary. So my question, as you can anticipate, is why did this not proceed through a temporary use zoning bylaw?
It's temporary.
It's not something that was contemplated by staff through you, Mr. Chair, temporary use zoning bylaw for this purpose. I don't know what is meant by temporary. It's outside storage. Does it mean because you can move the objects, they are only temporarily there? Perhaps the applicant can shed some light on that.
These are modular components, so once they're constructed and wrapped, they put them in the yard and they go to construction sites. So
I understand. So it'll be they'll be there consistently.
Moving. Yeah, they're not
Got it.
sitting there for any period of time.
Thank
They're
you.
just staying ahead of the or trying to
Understood.
supply inventory.
Thank you.
Just one question of the applicant and then one question of staff. The lovely arrangement of your containers on that conceptual site plan, is that what you anticipate, or?
Yeah, my understanding is that they have to get these in order, so they have to be in an orderly manner because they come over, they pick them up with some sort of machinery and put them on a flatbed and then transport them to the construction sites. So they need uniformity, so they will be in an orderly manner.
Okay. Thank you. And the question of staff is, the site plan that's condition 3, is that in accordance with Section 41 of the Planning Act or Section 40?
Section 41 of the Planning Act, yeah.
I haven't noted, Mr. Chairman, has that been referenced in previous site plan conditions? Because if it isn't, it should be. Okay. Anyway, I'm happy to leave it, but I would suggest for future we do note that, because then you can ask for conditions, you can enter into an agreement, that kind of stuff. So.
Mr. Chair, is that an amendment to condition 3 then, that it say site plan in accordance with Section 41? No. Okay. It is?
Well, I don't know that it's necessary to state that, simply because it's already in a site plan control area, because it's an industrial property. So it has to go through Section 41.
Then, Mr. Chair, there's no one here in opposition to this, sir?
Just for clarification, it doesn't have to go through site plan unless you deem it to be adding substantially to the property, because there's no building permit required here, not from my understanding, so.
I'm reassuring you that it has to go through site plan approval.
Seeing as there's no one here in opposition, there's no residents, or not residents, but other industrial operators that here that have any concern or see this as having any impact, and in support of industry in the area, I would move that this application be approved, subject to the conditions set out in the staff report.
Second. Mike, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Good. Motion to adjourn. There and there. Done.
We held it to the end.